Hey, hello, and welcome to the show. It's me, JP. It's time for another episode of John Park's Workshop, right here in this workshop with me, John Park. And hello everyone over in YouTube. Hey, Johnny Bergdahl and Doc McGillicuddy, Taeth Gundry, David Dessa, thanks for stopping by. I'm checking out the chat over there in, boy, these are dirty, over in YouTube, but you can also check out our Discord if you're somewhere that doesn't have a chat where we're hanging out, such as Twitch. Looking at you, Twitch. Then head over to Discord. The Adafruit Discord is this right here. You go to adafruit.it/discord and you'll get an instant invite. You can join our server and then head over to the live broadcast chat channel. That's the one that you're looking at right there. There's also a bunch of other channels where you can get help with projects, discuss things, show pictures of your pets, and so on and so forth. But the live broadcast chat, ooh, that's much better, channel is where we are right now. So let me move that. There we go. Shift that camera a little bit. I finished my fight with Lars, Todd. Where'd he go? It's just right here. That's spooky. But hey, C. Grover, Starman, Lawrence, Andy Calloway, Todd Bott, welcome. Thanks for stopping by over in our chat. Rich Sad stopped by to say that he had to go to an office meeting or something like that, some work thing. So maybe we'll see him later. Hey, Johnny Bergdahl. So what else is happening here? I will mention jobs.adafruit.com. That's a great place to go and have a look at some potential jobs. Could be contract positions, could be full-time stuff, part-time stuff, freelance. We also have this page right here, which is the available for hire. And if you can go there, you can check out, people have posted their resumes. If they're looking for work, you can go and find out about what they know, what they're looking to do, where they're at. And you can post your info as well for free. There's no cost to using our job board, so it's a good place to look for work. Let's see, what else is going on? Get a sip of water here. Doc McGillicuddy over in the YouTube asks, how much I can't get a Pi 4 for less than $150? Yeah, the reselling is terrible, but we are doing our best to release them and avoid having scalpers buy them by enforcing various things such as two-factor authentication and not allowing multiple purchases from the same address or very slightly shifted addresses and a bunch of other stuff we have going on. So if you do get one from Adafruit, know that you're getting it for the same price as always. And also check out, there's a Learn Guide I posted about that Pi Alert alarm that you can build. You don't need a Pi to build it. You can use a TFT Featherwing ESP32-S2 and find out based on the rpilocator.com Twitter feed when something comes in stock at Adafruit, or you can alter the code and check somewhere else, depending on where you are. All right, what else is happening? The show I do on Tuesdays, hi SNK Brown Productions, nice to see you popping up. Hey, 2231, popping up over there in our YouTube. The show right there that I have on Tuesdays, that's it. JP's product pick of the week. It looked like that this week because that's the product. It was the Cutie Pi ESP32-S2. And what we do is a little show where I talk about the product pick, do some demos, get it half price, throw them in your cart. You don't need a coupon code, just buy a bunch of them, up to 10. And now I like to do a little recap of the show. The show's about 15, 20 minutes long, but here's a little quick 1-minute recap. Check it out. It is the Cutie Pi ESP32-S2. It's a Wi-Fi dev board. It has 13 GPIO pins on it. It has native USB. It's a 240 megahertz single core Tensilica processor. It has 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi on there. And something I wanted to demo today is using this with Whippersnapper. So what I have is my Cutie Pi, and I've plugged into it a couple of different outboard sensor boards. You don't even need to code it in a traditional sense. What you can do is go here to this page. I can click on New Component, and these are the components that have been already created as sort of almost a plug and play or drag and drop. So we can pick any of these sensors here, and now you've Adafruit IO whippersnappered your Cutie Pi to give you all the info you need. So now my temperature is at 28 centigrade and 124. It is the ESP32-S2 Cutie Pi Wi-Fi dev board with Stemma QT built in. Yeah, it is. So let us know in the chats what you're using your Cutie Pi ESP32-S2 for. Some people had them already. I know a bunch of people bought them, ordered them during that. So let us know what kind of projects you're up to with them. I saw a cool. I might do a little tip of the week type of thing with this coming up. But it was a show and tell that Toddbot did on our show and tell show last night. Showing how you can use some of the little displays on a Cutie Pi because you can reassign all the pins pretty much however you want. So some of the little I2C OLED screens have a particular pin out. You plug them in. It doesn't actually match what's supposed to be there, but you can reassign pins all over the place on that board and make it work. So that was kind of a cool one. Just one use for those Cutie Pis. All right, next up, let's do a CircuitPython parsec. All right, let's do it. For the CircuitPython parsec today, I wanted to show how you could make a cool little randomized bicolor LED matrix using CircuitPython and just a little bit of code. So if you have a look here, I've got a Circuit Playground Bluefruit, and I have our little gizmo, little proto gizmo there, and I've attached this I2C backpack for a bicolor matrix. So these are pairs of little, or actually single bicolor LEDs under each square, so it can do red and green, or you can actually combine them and get yellow as well. I'm just doing red and green here, or off. And it just gives us this kind of nice little sci-fi readout type of look. The computer is thinking. That's probably what's going on there. So if we look at the code here, what I'm doing is I'm importing some libraries including time, board, so I get pin definitions, random, and from random I'm getting the random integer, or randint, and then the library for this actual display, which is the HT16K33 backpack. I bring in the matrix 8x8x2, that's the bicolor, and then I set up that display on I2C as the matrix. I'm setting its brightness at 0.1, and then I'm defining a little list here of colors, and you'll see here I've got LED red, LED green, and LED off, which I've actually placed in there twice just to sort of adjust the odds, little increased odds that I won't have an LED lit. Then I'm filling it with off at the beginning just to clear things out. I think it does that automatically, but I added that in there. And here's what's going on in the main loop. We set a variable called x, which is a random integer from 0 to 7. So that's going to be one of the horizontal positions. We set an integer we set a variable called y for a random integer 0 through 7, so that's going to be the vertical position. And then we're setting a color variable, which is based on grabbing one of those items in my list, either red, green, off, or the other off. Then we set the matrix. This is how we light up. We say matrix xy, so some position that was selected, equals whatever this color is. And then we sleep for a tiny little bit of time and repeat that. And so we get all these really nice blinky random types of lights going on in here. And so that is how you can set some random lights on the bicolor LED matrix inside of CircuitPython. And that is your CircuitPython parsec. Beep, 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 beep. All right, so let's see, what's next? I'm going to turn on the air in here because it just got a bit stuffy in here. And whoa, that's not it. Wrong button. Hold on. Try that again. I'm going to get a bunch of light in there, but not any cooler air. It's still hot around here. There we go. Better button. So let's see. By the way, I'll look into this later and let me know if anyone in the chat has run across this. In fact, let's show this. This is kind of a fun thing to take a look at. Let me go to this view. If we go back to our little bicolor matrix here, let's just comment this section out. And watch what happens if I tell it to be a fill of red. So all it's going to do is start the board up, import the libraries, refresh things, and then, hey, what the heck? It sets everything to green. And if I try green, it sets everything to red. This seems to only happen with the fill command. If you use the matrix, and let's set one of these positions on here. Oops. How about 4, 4 equals LED green. Oh, I gotta say matrix LED green. Sorry about that. And save there. So setting individual colors, it's correct, but I think something maybe in the library got swapped around, so it doesn't actually obey your fill command. It grabs the opposite color. So I will go dig a little deeper into that, make sure I'm using the latest versions of everything, and I'll make a little bug report there and so get that fixed. But it's funny, I've never run into that because I don't think I've used that fill command, or if I have, I've used it for yellow, which is a combination of both the red and the green being turned on, and you can't tell. It works and you can't tell. So funny that, huh? So, all right, unplug that. Let me know if anyone's ever run into that before. I don't know what if that's just unique to this 8x8 matrix. We have a lot of different driver or a lot of LED packages that we drive off of those matrix driver boards. So I'm curious if anyone's seen that sort of thing before. All right, so let's see. Next up, let me pause a thing over here. We've got a really cool project that I wanted to start working on and show you here today. So this was based on a project I found online, and I blogged about it the other day. Let me pull up the GitHub page for this. I'm going to go to my browser. And how about that view there? I'll scoot over to the side. So this is a use of the NeoTrellis, the 8x8 NeoTrellis, as a trigger sequencer, an interface for a piece of software that uses MIDI on the computer. So it's going to use USB MIDI to send commands about when to trigger essentially a drum sound, or the gate or the trigger impulse of a drum on multiple different instruments, or channels as this is called, and it allows you to use multiple different patterns. So it's a really cool, as you can see here, a 64-step sequencer, and you can modify. I'll show a version that I'm working on that has some little 16-step, 3 little 16-step drums available, as well as some other controls. And so this is similar to some other things that we've done before with the NeoTrellis, either the 8x8 one or the NeoTrellis little M4 version that's self-contained. But what's different here is the code that, this is, I think, Patchwork Boy. The code that Patchwork Boy wrote for this in Arduino works really well with the bidirectional MIDI messages that can be used to keep your device in sync with your software. And so the reason this is important is that you can have, if you look at this image right here, you can see there is a little gizmo on screen here in this virtual modular synthesizer software that you've seen me show before, called VCV Rack. There is one gizmo in there that is a 64-step sequencer, and it has an interface that you can click on inside of the software. It also lights up each step as it's playing, so you sort of know where things are. And often when you're doing these sorts of things with a sort of DIY MIDI solution, you don't end up with feedback going in both directions. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here, and then we'll take a look at how it's done. So I'm going to bring up a couple of windows here. And let me do a little bit of camera management. So I will ultimately probably do a little guide that focuses on just this 8x8 grid here, but I'll demo it using the really cool dual approach that Patchwork Boy created, which is we have two separate gizmos here. We have the NeoTrellis M4. This one has an integrated microcontroller, M4 microcontroller in the board. And then this one is, currently I've got a Feather M4 in there. You can't see it too well because I got it kind of dark so we can look at the LEDs. Let me just tweak that exposure just a little bit. Not too much though, there we go. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that pretty dark, sorry. So, let me give you a demo of this, and I may need to, let me see, I may need to set up an external speaker for you to hear this clearly. Let me see if I've got what I need right here. Stand by, I'm gonna make a bunch of racket here while I... So what I'm going to do, just to avoid audio echoes and things, I'm going to take a little amplifier here and I'm going to plug it into, I have a Thunderbolt audio output. We should be able to play this without getting microphone echoey kinds of problems if we're lucky. Sorry, I forgot to set this up before, but let me plug that into power. And let me find a nice, neat place to put that. All right, so let me see if that audio worked. I might have to tweak that a bit. I'm going to tell this software. So here I am over in VCV Rack, and one of the things I can do in here is tell it to play audio through my Thunderbolt interface. Okay, and now I'm going to use the two NeoTrellises here to play this. Let me turn up the gain on the output here too. Okay, so let me know over in the chat if you can hear a mix of me and this audio output enough to at least follow along, but hopefully you can still hear me talking. So I'll let that play for a second here. And get this set up. So sounds good. Okay, thank you, Andy Kelly. And I'm just checking the YouTube chat here. Everything good? Yeah. Okay, so what's going on right now? You're hearing mostly this bass or kick drum. You can see the pattern that I'm playing there. Let me okay, so here's a pattern that's going to be easy to tell. I'm going to mute some other tracks though, so we can actually I'll just solo that track. Okay, so now what I can do, if you take a look at this, I'm going to zoom up on this this one module here. This is this multi-seq. It's a trigger sequencer, 64 steps. and it has multiple channels and multiple patterns in it. So right now we're looking at a particular pattern. If I go and pick a different pattern to both play and edit, you'll see it's a sync between both the gizmo, the NeoTrellis, and the module. So I'm going to go back to this third pattern, and now I'm both editing and viewing that. So now I can go in and let's lay in some extra steps. By the way, I think there's a little lag just AV-wise between what you're seeing on my VCV rack virtual software versus what I see, and they're both synced up perfectly in the real world between the NeoTrellis and the module and VCV rack. So you'll notice as I add or remove steps on the NeoTrellis, they get added over on the VCV rack module, right? But I can also go over to VCV rack if for whatever reason I want to make some changes there, and you'll see the changes are updated in real time right on the module, or rather the actual NeoTrellis, which is fantastic. So the cool thing is that the software for this in Arduino is essentially just looking for incoming MIDI messages on a particular channel that it uses to turn on and off NeoPixels. So while usually we think of MIDI going from a controller out to a piece of hardware or software and then that MIDI note gets played, in this case we have MIDI notes coming also in the other direction that say which thing to light up and which color. So those MIDI messages are being used not to make sounds at all, but instead to just be control values for NeoPixel colors. So you can see here, if we switch among the different patterns, we can go to a blank pattern right here, and now we can. And by the way, the developer, Patchwork Boy, did a great job on this, said that there is some bug between two of the modules in VCV rack that are causing us to often need to double tap the steps to get them to edit. I think that might only be during live play. That does not happen in this mixer mode. So let's go back to a different pattern, and there's a little special key combo we can use which puts the device into a wholly different mode, and this is the mixer mode, mixer and some controls. If I scroll up here, this might look familiar even if you're not super into audio, but this might look familiar. It looks like a mixing board that you see in a recording studio where you use these sliders or faders to adjust the levels on a guitar versus drums versus bass versus some vocals. So that's what this is, a virtual software representation of that. And at the bottom of each of these channels, these audio channels, you can see there's a mute button and there's a solo button. So right now, the reason we're only hearing that kick drum is because I'm soloing it. If I take that solo off, now you'll start to hear four different things. We have a kick, we have a snare, we have a little hi-hat, and we also have a little bass line thing. I can mute. Now the kick is gone. And so again, we have, I think these are bidirectional also, so if I go and adjust them in software with my mouse, yeah, it works. I'm clicking on things, it turns green up in the software, it also turns green over here in the actual device. So you can imagine we get, I think it's 16 channels of audio. So this is a row of 8 mutes and solos, another row of 8 mutes and solos here. I forget what these do here. Down at the bottom, we've got the pause or play. We have reset. This jumps the sequence back to the first step. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually go to a more crowded sequence here so you can hear some of these effects. These bottom triggers here actually send out a trigger to cause an effect to happen, as if you swept a filter knob or did a stutter edit, so that the mute button goes really, 18th note, 16th notes, 8th notes. So check this out. I'll go to a crowded pattern. And let me go. Over here, what you're going to see is a series of effects. So when I hit this first effect, you can see that that's sending this filter frequency shift for a cutoff. Second one, same sort of thing, different direction it's coming from. There's a cool stutter at it. So it's sort of muting in time. Oh, and these ones I just added these. These require the bass to be heard. What I'm going to do is switch to, you can hear I'm soloing that bass line. And now if I hit one of these, I'm just tweaking around with some of the parameters of that bass line. Let's see, this one, it's just jumping some octaves in a quantizer. It's just noodling around with some pitch. I think it was an FM frequency. Oh, and that's that. You can put stop again, and then head back over to our patterns here to go pattern editing. So you can see I was just playing around with the bass line. That's this green line here. So if we go back and play, all right, so this is the bass line. You can see that happening. And if you look over in the step editor, you can see it also is in sync color-wise. So yellow is the hi-hats, amber is the snare, red is the kick, and then green is that bass line. So there's nothing in that pattern, so we can go make a brand new one. Or we can do it in software over here. All right, so let's go ahead and pause that. And let's see if we got any questions, first of all. Oh, sorry. Someone said that this little string, it's a rubber band. Sorry, it's a very dead rubber band. This was swaying because of the air conditioning. I'll get rid of that. That would bother me too. I am with you. Tioataki, I don't know what your name is there, but yeah, that was bugging me too. Thanks for pointing it out. So let's take a look now at how this works. So I'll maybe dig a little bit into this. You know what? No, let me change the scene here. So I'm going to open up a simplified patch that I just put somewhere. There it is. And let's see if this works. So I'm actually gonna, I think there's an initialization that Patchwork Boy did in his patch that I didn't in mine. So I'm gonna just power cycle my one trellis, NeoTrellis there. And I'm not using the second one in this example. So first of all, let me see if I can get it working. Are you connected? It looks like not. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let me connect up in software, and then I'm going to reconnect in hardware. I'd also use the reset button, but it's a little recessed, so you need like a pen or something to click it. Okay. Huh, you know, it lost its, it looks like it lost its assignments. That's okay, I can show how those assignments work kind of from scratch then. Okay, so what's going on is, here's a simplified scene. If we just look at one of these, so I'm using a little module here, this little trigger sequencer module. And what I want to do is make a connection between my NeoTrellis and these 16 pads from MIDI. So what we can do is I'm going to use a little module here that is for making assignments between various controls and MIDI notes. So if I... Oh, that's funny. It's acting like it is, though. Why is it not? You know what I'll do? Let me make a new scene. Oh, look. Yeah, that reminded it of itself. Okay, so let's reopen that. Huh. All right, I may have to build a thing from scratch then. Let's see. Yeah, this one's acting like my connections are there, but it doesn't like them. All right, let's see if we can do it from totally scratch. Let me see, is this one? Yeah, I'm going to make that from... So VCV Rack has this sort of virtual module browser, so I can go, let me zoom out a bit, I can go through here and look for stuff, or I can also type in the names of things. I'm looking for this MIDI cat. And let's grab that trigger sequencer. So trig seek. Okay, so in the most basic form, what I can do is say the device that I'm reading is this Feather M4, and the device that it will send to is the Feather M4, which is what's driving this module or NeoTrellis. And then I can go and say I want to map a step here. Oh gosh, it's really not working, huh? Okay, let me try a brand new scene then. Maybe something got corrupt in that patch. I'm just going to shift off to the side, ignore those things. Oh, you know what though? Let me do one thing, which is if I tell it which audio interface I'm using, sometimes that seems to fix everything. So hold on. Just remembered that. It might not know. Okay, so let's tell it my audio interface is this. Hey, that fixes everything. I don't know why that is. Okay. So I can also do this from scratch if you want to see it, but you may not. So here what we have is this MIDI cat, and it has been trained that any of its buttons, so there's 64 buttons there roughly that I've mapped. I don't think I mapped everything. If I right-click on one and say locate and indicate, it's going to jump over and show me and blink. It says, okay, that button right there, that is linked to whichever pad I just chose. So if I go, I don't think I have a neat way to clear these, so let me just clear these 16 up here. So if I go now and press my first button that was mapped over here, it will turn on and off this button in the virtual module. And see here, it is lighting them all up. Now, right now, I don't have it sending any proper color info, but I do have it sending either on or off. So it's just remembering the color assignments that I gave this on startup. So on startup, there was a rainbow pattern essentially given to it in code, and now it's just reusing those. So mine is not as sophisticated as that patch that Patchwork Boy did, aptly named. And so what I did was for this simpler example, I just set up 3 of these little trigger sequencers, so you can see them all light up there or not, and it's bidirectional, so I can go in, whoop, and clear those out. There's no just mass clear button. That would be cool. So what this last one here is doing is allowing me to trigger some stuff in my system's, or rather this patch's clock, which is going to allow a sequencer clock to start playing. It kind of tells everything how fast to go. And I hooked that up, I think. Where did I hook that up? Here. So you can hear now I've got, let me simplify that one. I've got these 3 sequences playing. They are synced with each other. I don't have the blocks I would need in there to show where we are with that little moving light. That would actually, the way I have this set up, be a little bit tricky right now. But what we can do is essentially start and stop that sequence, because I'm, again, telling MIDI to go out, press a button, and in the case of these, MIDI's also writing back out and saying, okay, turn on a light. And the way you can tell that's not just something happening in code on the trellis is that when I press these buttons in software, it's just that MIDI command that's heading back out this way to light things up. So that is the sort of basics of that. Now let's take a look at the Arduino code for this, which, yeah, we can leave those little lights on there, which is running on the 8x8. There's also separate code running on the little half-size one, the 32 pixel one. And I have not looked at this deeply enough to share a lot of insights, but I'll just take you through a little bit of it, where we're using essentially USB MIDI and a bunch of little tables or arrays of notes. So these are going from note MIDI 24 up to 87. So that's what's always being sent from this out. And then you can see here we have one of our NeoTrellis multi-trellis over I²C setup. So I have those different, I can boost this exposure now. I have those different 4 NeoTrellis boards there. Each have a different address. And I accidentally built this one with a non-standard. We actually kind of have a standard I²C address setup that we put in our guides that you should follow. And I'm going to rebuild this and do a nice little guide on this that'll follow the standard convention. But essentially, I've got jumpers there that I have soldered together to change my I²C addresses that allows us to use the multiple boards there. So here you can see it's setting up this multi-trellis as a 4x4. And then there's some typical MIDI setup, note on, note off messages, as well as a CC or control change message. And then some callbacks for what to do when something gets pressed. Some of the NeoTrellis setup here is using Seesaw keypad as the little library for the Seesaw built onto each of those to aggregate all the button presses and all the NeoPixel commands. This stuff happens really fast because we're not sending all of that from the Feather over to this many keys. We're actually just sending messages over I²C, and then the onboard chip on those NeoTrellises takes care of lighting things up and reading buttons, which is great. Some color setup here. And then in the main loop, there is a trellis show, which is just going to say light up pixels based on sort of a buffer of what pixel colors should be lit up. And trellis read, which is the, hey, did you pull on your little chips any buttons and find out something changed? Tell us about that. And then there's a MIDI event packet receive. So that's what's getting any info about, okay, some MIDI button got pushed over in the software side, so let's send that info back this way and interpret that into a color. And then there's a bunch of different cases here used for different modes. The mixer mode versus that sequencer mode. And that's about as deep as I've gone into it, but if you look in here, you'll see some of the details of how the color selection is working. Different cases for those, lighting up rows, lighting up the in-time pixels, which again is mostly controlled by MIDI messages happening over on, I think the clock. I think we get a message from the clock step as a MIDI message that's coming back this way. And then we also got that nice little theater chase at the beginning. That's what happens when you plug it in. Get that little checkerboard theater chase. So if you're wondering, and I saw a question over in the chat, what this is running on, if you look at that right there is a 8x8 NeoTrellis kit that has the Feather M4, all the elastomer, all the drivers, so that's a good one to get. It's got kind of everything you need there. However, if you want to do it based on some parts you already have or build it around a different microcontroller board, you can get this separate, case here. So this is the product ID 4372. And that's the, laser cut acrylic case that you assemble. It's got paper you peel off, which is why a bunch of that looks yellow. And actually the top of mine I didn't peel off. There's a little plastic coating on there too. And then you'd want to get 4 of the driver boards, which look like that. Those are the driver boards. And 4 of these little elastomer keypads. So that's essentially what's in the kit. I don't know if there's a price break on the kit, but if you wanted to do it with a different microcontroller, different feather board, kind of could be anything that has I2C really. But this code here is really ideally going to run on the M4. What I'm going to do is try to see if I can get it running on the RP2040 feather, which may be an issue because the MIDI USB that's being used right now doesn't compile for that, at least based on my preliminary tests. But since the RP2040s are so available and will continue to be available, and see if we can make this all work on that instead of the M4. So again, if you're interested in actually running this particular Right. Oh, this battery's almost dead too. So I'm going to say goodbye because I don't know if I have any other There we go. That's a little bit better battery power. These are nickel cadmium. I don't think this pack loves them as much as alkaline, so hopefully we're not getting any issues with it. But thanks for the warning over there. Yes, so I will wrap it up though because I don't trust those batteries at all. If you're interested in this project, go check it out in the blog or in the chat in Discord. I dropped in a link there. Scroll up a bit. There it is. So go check that out. Super amazing work by Patrick Boy. Thank you so much for sharing that. I saw that over on one of the synth forums I'm on and was so excited to see that he'd shared that. And let me know if there was anything you missed when my mic died. Hopefully not. I need a battery status thing. I sure do. I should just point a camera at my mic pack and put it in the corner of my monitor so I always see it. That's going to do it for today. Thanks everyone for stopping by. For Adafruit Industries, I'm John Park. This has been John Park's Workshop. And don't forget to tune in tonight for a very special time, a very special episode of Ask an Engineer. It's usually on Wednesdays, but this week it is on Thursday. It'll be 8 o'clock Eastern Time. All of your favorite Lady Ada and Mr. Lady Ada news, updates, new products, chip shortages, new songs, shenanigans, time travel, and more, I'm sure. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.